Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. Welcome to Friday. Welcome back inside the vault, Off the Hinges. I have my beautiful bride with me. Say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
That was a very, one of our daughter
hilarious thing.
One of our daughter things to do. Thanks for being exacting. Very nice. Today we're diving into stewardship. It's not just about managing resources. We can get into a little bit of that maybe, but really we view it as being faithful with everything that God has entrusted to us so that our lives reflect Him, fulfill His purpose. And I can't think of a better person to have on for this episode, because when you get married, we believe you become one. So things that I steward is really things that Laura is also stewarding, and vice versa. So even if we act individually, it's all done as one in the union of marriage, as a couple, as parents. So there's a lot that we can jump into on this. Before I get into the questions, any thoughts you have to kick this off, or anything you want to say before we dive right in?
I don't think so.
No. What are you drinking tonight?
The white wine that you poured me.
The white wine. And I have a little bit of bourbon. Yeah. I don't even remember what bourbon I poured myself tonight. I don't have a huge stash, but
Couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you either.
Drink the bourbon.
A good bourbon that she doesn't drink, and a good white wine. And normally I'll drink a wine with her. But anyway, we're going to jump in. So the 3 questions we always ask. So thanks for everybody engaging with this. But next week, Fred and I, we're going to take a break from Back to Good, because we all just returned from Disneyland Paris. The Maranos family, the Hill family, sensory overload. Disneyland Paris at the end of summer is much like someone stepped on an anthill. Only the anthill is Disneyland, and the ants are people, and they're everywhere. And the people aren't as orderly or organized as ants would be. So kids were jazzed. We are smoke checked. So you're going to get us pretty raw, a little bit tired tonight. But Laura and I are going to follow the typical format that Fred and I use, the head, hands, and heart. And there's a couple of questions in each of those, then we'll close it out. And hopefully this is practical, it's relatable, and it's something that you can dig into on your own as you apply next week. But out the gates, my dear, what are you thankful for this week?
It's going to sound funny, but it's 100% true, is we made it through a full trip without anybody, especially on the airplane, without anybody throwing up. No one got sick. We made it there safely and back. There were no unexpected delays. I'm traumatized from a throwing up.
Yeah, let's
situation.
rewind to the throw up thing. You went there, so now you get a story. So the throwing up thing, not me, not that I've never thrown up in my life, but typically not a avid thrower upper on flights. What spurred you to say that?
I'm not going to tell which one did what, but when 2 years ago now, when we were flying to Helsinki, Finland, we went with a group of moms and kids, and you were away, and all of our husbands were away because you had some sort of training exercise or something. I can't remember, but it was 10 kids and 5 moms or something like that. Anyway, on the second flight, first flight was fine. On the second flight, so we flew maybe to Oslo and then we flew to Helsinki. And on the second flight, one of our kids threw up directly onto the other one with no warning. No, my stomach hurts, nothing. And naturally, the one who did get puked on was extremely upset. And meanwhile, I also had Karina, who was a baby at the time, and she had one of those seatbelt extenders. So she was attached to my seatbelt, but I had to get up because we had carry-ons, fortunately, but I had to get extra clothes for the one who reaped the benefit of that situation. So, yeah. And also one of the moms that was with us was a few rows back, and she saw me get up and came up immediately and helped me with our daughter and cleaned out her hair and everything.
Oh man.
But since then, I will never travel in any way, shape, or form without car or plane, which none of our kids have ever done that, but they did it when I was traveling alone with Josh. And now I will never, ever travel without a Ziploc bag with extra clothes again.
Yeah. So there you have it. So we're thankful for no vomiting flight mode. I'm thankful that we had a great trip. Equally, I will also share a story of what did happen. Although vomiting on the plane didn't happen, thank goodness. There's a lot of vomit happening in this episode already. Sorry for that. It's just a word that happened today. But what did happen, first of all, to Fred, my co-host from Back to Good. I love this guy, and I'm so thankful that he was there with us. But that poor guy got handed a doozy of an incident. So again, I won't say which daughter. You can figure it out by which one is probably tall enough to ride a ride that nobody else would ride. So that knocks it down to one for you. So we were about to get on this ride. I think it was Space Mountain or something in Disneyland. So we were at the main theme park. We went to this section for the day on the second day. We saw this ride and everyone's excited to go. So the mothers and the little ones are staying away. And then Fred and I each have two of our girls. One of our girls is just, actually, first of all, I have some beef to pick with Disneyland Paris. She was old enough, or she was tall enough to ride this ride. But he said no. She wasn't standing far enough forward to where the back of her head wasn't at the measurement. And he just saw like the forehead. And he said she didn't touch it. And I was trying to get her to move and she wouldn't. And he goes, she's not tall enough, go away. So I was already frustrated. And then my other daughter goes, I want to ride the ride with Mr. Fred. I said, are you sure? Yes, Dad, I'm sure. Okay, go ahead. So this was a very simple yes or no. And Fred gets on the ride. His two daughters get on the ride. And my daughter, who will remain nameless, you can read between the lines, gets on the ride. And before she pulls her harness over, because it's one of those where it sort of flips around, and she had been talking to herself, like psyching herself out. Oh, this is going to be fine. I'm not going to be nervous at all. It's all going to be good. And a little bit of a nervous twitch, I guess, was the exceeding verbiage that she was throwing into right before she got onto this ride. So the safety guy comes walking around and Fred pulls his shoulder harness over, click, 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 make sure that his daughter's comes down, click, 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 looks back at Aria to smile at her and encourage her. And Aria hasn't click, click, clicked anything. And she steps off of the ride and she goes, I'm not doing it. And then Fred goes, oh my gosh, I can't, sir, I need to get back. He goes, sir, you can't come undone. It's a safety thing. Nope. The ride needs to go. And he said, but she's with me. And also I can appreciate Fred. I sort of chuckled about this after all of the angst subsided. Like, here's a black guy with two little black girls and looks at this blonde haired, blue eyed white girl and goes, she's with us. And it was sort of like, I don't know. The guy's looking at him a little confused. And then the train starts leaving the station to go on the ride. And my daughter's standing there and Fred is like talking back to this guy, this worker, as they're pulling away to go on the ride. And he goes, I need her to be here. When he gets back, he goes, oh, don't worry, sir. So poor Fred's sitting there a little bit freaked out that I've just left this daughter of Josh's.
You already said her name.
Did I? Oh, man, I already said her name. Sorry, Aria. We already know it was you. You're the tallest one. Come on. So she's standing there and Fred does this whole ride, not really able to enjoy it because she's there by herself. A freshly minted 9-year-old standing there with a bunch of people. And Fred, instead of being able to enjoy the ride, is freaking out like, man, I sure hope she's there when I get back. So, man, he's such a good dude. And Aria, we love you. There was no shame in not riding it. It was just very inconvenient timing. So no vomiting happened on planes or rides, but just my daughter ditching a ride and leaving my really good buddy a little bit paranoid that she might not be there when he gets back. Disneyland Paris. What a memory. What a great time with friends. And good Lord, some of it I could have done without. But here we are back in Norway talking about stewardship. That has nothing to do with stewardship, or maybe it does, whatever. Not trying to make a connection. We're thankful, we're home, and we're safe. And we are so thankful for friends who we love and their family. Man, that was so good. What a good time. And shout out to Fred's sister, Chanel, for helping out with the kiddos and just being a rock star. They were all absolutely wonderful. Okay, number 2. What are you learning lately?
Just patience and working on trying to let go of control of, I guess, the future, just because we're in this weird scenario of not knowing what's next. And so I feel like I'm putting I don't want to say I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I think I'm doing the opposite. I'm putting my eggs in lots of baskets and not knowing exactly what is going to happen. And so just trying to be patient with that and not be anxious about it, because it doesn't do any good. And I know that, but also a large part of me would like to know a little bit more about the near future. So
there is no reading between the lines. That is totally dealing with my job and what's coming next. And there's a lot of things up in the air. And if you know us well, you might know us on this. And if you don't know us well, life happens. Yeah, I think similarly, we didn't rehearse any of this, so I don't know what she was going to say. She doesn't know what I'm going to say. Patience is always one to learn. But what I'm learning, I said this to Lindsay the other day, because a really good friend of ours, Lynn's, reached out to me, and she's going through some schoolwork, getting her master's for some stuff. And without divulging all her personal details, that's for her to share if she ever cared to. But she took a little bit of a pause on what she was doing for her studies. And she reached out to me and she goes, "Hey, I really appreciate that you told me that you took a little pause on the summer from your PhD, because I just really hadn't even thought about that. I was just on this grind of I need to do it. And then they were able to go back to where she's from in Canada, and she didn't have any school assignments over summer school looming over her head. And when she told me that, I really appreciated it. So I guess communicating things you're doing with friends that you know are in a similar space is helpful and healthy, because it gives them maybe a little bit of a nudge of it's okay to give yourself some space. But I think that's what I'm learning, is to make myself margin. And the way I told her was, yeah, maybe I'm glad that you gave yourself some space and some grace. To which she replied, well, I guess you could also just give yourself stress and duress, but I don't know if that's so good. So I guess I would say I'm learning to give myself space and grace that I don't really have to justify. And that doesn't mean it's lacking initiative or lacking work ethic. But I'm so glad I did that, because I had space to go camping with the family in Norway over the summer. We took the girls, enjoyed such a beautiful birthday dinner in Paris. Oh, the waiter was awesome. The experience for Aria and for us to just unplug and be together, fully together. I took 0 laptop computers with me. We just had our phone, and I only brought that with me if we needed it. So I was about as unplugged as I possibly could be from work, from this stuff, from coaching, from podcasts, from everything. No PhD studies, no research, just me and the family. So giving myself space was really needed. And actually, I think that is really applicable to stewardship. Maybe we'll unpack that a little bit more. But how are we managing not just our money, our resources, our stuff and things, but our time, our talents, our relationships? Those are things that are gifts. And when we view them that way, I think it helps shift into this mindset of stewardship. Okay, last one. How do you hope to grow and transform as you find some time to rest and reflect heading into the weekend?
Well, we're kind of already in the weekends.
That's good.
But I think We have a plan for a 2-night concert, music fest with our neighbors. And I think I do need to just take it all in, just because they are one of the main reasons that I like it here so much, is because we have awesome neighbors. And I mean, that's an understatement, just because, to be fair, we've had some really awesome neighbors, I think, in the last three places we've lived. But they're really special. And I think I just need to remember that. And also, when I say take it in, just in case we're not here for another year, then we won't be able to do this again next year. So
yeah,
I think that's important to remember.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
That's good. How am I trying to grow and transform? This is really difficult when I ask myself and have to answer them. I usually just get to ask other people, listen to them. I think the most important way I'm trying to grow and transform is look at how I'm investing the time I spend in the things that I'm doing. Again, it's partly tethered to what I'm learning to give myself a little bit of space and grace. So space in the margin of my schedule and what I'm committing my time and talents and efforts into. And also the grace of moving past things that I've been trying to prune out of my life and tune up. So I think everyone's always trying to go through things and learn from mistakes, and we all make them, and I definitely do too. So we together as a married couple have just been really trying to focus on ourselves more and not just let our relationship be the byproduct of whatever's left after we focus on the kids, and not just become babysitters that live together and help each other with the children that live in our house, but actually focus on our marriage and our relationship and how do we steward that? Because then in the family, I'm confident that everything follows suit to that, and it shouldn't be the other way around. So if I'm going to give someone more time than anyone else in this family, it should be no question to the girls that my time is first and foremost for their mother and for my wife. And of course they matter just as much, but she should be number one, and she is. But more than theory, just actually making time for that. So things like, hey, 2 nights of a concert where we are hiring a babysitter to go enjoy time with our neighbors. That's the space. And I think the grace we're trying to show to ourselves to really invest in us, which will only benefit the girls. And then one day, if and when they leave the house, girls, you'll leave the house one day when you get old enough, I would imagine. It's going to be just us. So I don't want to be awkward and clunky and looking at each other going like, ooh, what do we do now that there's a quiet house and no kids? And you hear that a lot, but I think that's just a product of not trying to grow and nurture a healthy marriage relationship. So it sounds simple and it sounds cliche, but it's actually really hard when you have 3 kids in 3 separate schools and endless WhatsApp and Signal and Spawn groups, and it's just all day, every day. It's really hard to unplug. So part of this is what we do. We normally have either a glass of wine or a cup of tea, and we'll do a devotion together at night. So tonight, instead of doing that, we're enjoying a drink together, and this is sort of taking place of our devotion together, and this is our time to maybe pay it forward to you two a little bit. So there's for me. Okay. So we're going to walk through this very similarly to how I do with Fred, but starting with the head, because I think your mindset on everything is really important. Romans 12, 9 through 12 is sort of our spiritual scriptural anchor for how we're going to explore this a little bit and some questions we have. But I'll say it, what it actually is, what the verses say. But can you tell them why those verses are important to us? Like where they come from, whose they are, who we've made those verses for?
Life verses for all 3 of our daughters.
Yeah.
And Aria actually took a portion of it and used it as her quote. They had to put a quote on a thought bubble at school, and that was what she chose to do. So that's pretty cool.
That was so cute. Maybe for this episode, well, I normally don't do like waste of time editing to put little things in. But if you watch this on YouTube, when Laura says that, I'll jump it in there because it's absolutely adorable. And that was her idea. And she's like, oh, because I said do a quote. And she's like, Dad, what's a quote? Like, what would I do? I said, that's what people say. You can make it that. You could just make it an idea you have. You could make it a verse. And she was like, ooh, what about our verse? And that was sort of her immediate response. And I just thought that was really, again, if you steward things well, maybe it's a good investment. And I really felt like that's a byproduct of what we've tried to help her focus on. And it really is her character. It's who she is. So listen to this. And then I'll highlight exactly what Aria put on her little thought bubble, which was really sweet. So Romans 12, 9 through 12. This is how we're going to anchor our minds in stewardship. It says, don't just pretend to love others, really love them. That's what Aria put. That's all she put. And I think that's so beautiful. But it goes on to say, hate what's wrong, hold tightly to what's good. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope, be patient in trouble, and keep on praying. Before I jump into the framing, I'll ask you, like, how would you say you've seen that if we've been stewarding that in our girls? How have you seen that verse resonate with maybe who they are as individuals, or have you seen that lived out, or how have you modeled that for them? Because I've seen all of those things, but does anything sort of pop out to you from that set of verses as it relates to our girls and who you know them to be?
I think that both of us, not just me, but I think both of us have really shown them how important it is to serve others and to care for others. And so I think that they also do the same in their, I don't know about Karina yet, but Aria and Alessia are definitely caring individuals.
There's a lot we don't know about Karina yet. She's
number 3.
She's wilding. She's number 3. Yep.
But I think that Aria and Alessia both are caring, and sometimes to a point where we have to be like, actually, that's not realistic, but that's a great idea. So yeah, like, what's a good example? Oh, for the first day of school, I would really like for us to have a treat that we bring to all of our classmates, because I really want to show them how happy I am that they're in my class and that we're starting a new school year. Just very sweet, but it's not that sweet when it's 7:00 the night before their first day of school.
Mom doesn't have that sort of time, nor does Dad. Dad doesn't have the skill. Mom doesn't have the time. Boils down to not happening. Yeah.
No, but just, I think in general, they're both very caring, and they're kind of caring in different ways, just because, as anybody who knows them knows, that Ari and Alessia are very different, have very different personalities. But I do think that they both emulate that caring and empathetic type of personality.
Yeah. I love that, though, because for stewardship, it is the essence of, it's coming on the heels of what we discussed on ownership with Garita. That was an amazing episode. She's such a great person. Go listen to her story. And then what Fred and I unpacked. So it is owning things that have been gifted to you and entrusted to you. But there is much difference between ownership and stewardship. So you can have something that you can rightfully claim as yours, but you might not steward it well. And so that's where we want to hopefully highlight the difference between the two today. So again, really believe that everything starts in your mind. So with this set of verses, it's really highlighting how we frame God's call in our lives. So for us, this passage reminds us, and it's how we wanted to share it with our daughters, for a layer of accountability, some redundancy. They all have the same set of verses that they can anchor in and support each other in. That's just how we want our girls to be. And it made it simple too, because we really believe in it. But it reminds us that stewardship isn't just about action. It starts with ordering our thoughts and our motives, a genuine love. I love how it starts. Don't just pretend to love others, like really love them. And if it's telling you don't just pretend, there's a lot of fake love out there. Or it might be easy to pretend when it's someone that you like, or it's not a very divergent setting where everybody generally gets along. So you can just sort of, without even knowing it, maybe just fake that you love them. But much like what Laura said, she's learning to be patient. So love is patient and kind. So that means when you want to get ornery and when you want to get short fused and when you want to just rush through things, parenting highlights that maybe more than anything, that you've got to really focus on love. So don't just pretend it. You really have to do it because kids will sniff it out. And then it's our thinking, if it's self-focused, then we might hoard our talents that we've been gifted, or we might waste them. So we want our thinking in our family to be God-focused. We want our children to have some sort of moral compass from that. And we need to steward those relationships and their talents well. And we want them to multiply what they've been given for the purpose that we believe God has for their life, not just whatever their whims or notions are. And it comes from us modeling that. So to us, it's a really high call. So I will ask you though, Laura, how would you simply frame or define stewardship the way that you understand it and try to apply it?
I immediately think of financial stewardship, but I think that, of course, it's just whatever resources that you're given, just using them in the best way possible. And when I'm thinking of it in this frame, then it would be using those resources the best we can in order to serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And not necessarily always financial, but like you said, other areas too.
It is sort of the go-to though. I mean, when you hear stewardship, you think of how are you stewarding your finances, your wealth, whatever. And you can unpack the parallels of, okay, regular wealth, riches, or the wealth of your lifestyle, the wealth of all the blessings or gifts or talents you have. But I guess I'll respond very similarly, but in a different frame. Financially, we'll just take that avenue. So there are different ways that you can view that. You can view that, am I investing well? Am I saving up for the kids' future? Which we both do. We have a great friend, Jody, who that's her forte, that's her knack. It's not really our knack. It's not that we're chumps at it, but definitely not our skill or profession. So she is really good at helping us understand and navigate that landscape of our finances, our retirement, our investments. So there's a lot of humility in stewarding things well to look at, if I've been entrusted with things, I need a good group of people around me who have different skills and abilities and gifts. So you start viewing it more as like your community and the people you're with are more like a body that can't function without the other parts. And I think that's biblical. It's also just general. If you don't even believe or have the same faith we do, that's just a good community approach. Is there are other people that can supplement your life and you can supplement theirs. But I think it really hit home for me when I did a lot of what we call in the Marine Corps CACOs, or Casualty Assistance Calls Officer. And I've done that for a lot. So basically what it is with Headquarters Marine Corps Casualty, you get assigned to care for the family who's just recently lost a service member, whether it's killed in action, by natural causes. There is someone who's either a staff non-commissioned officer, so like a senior enlisted, or a commissioned officer who will manage as the CACO for that deceased Marine's family or next of kin. And I had always done some investing or saving money or whatever, but stewardship, when it comes to a financial lens, and I'm going to say this to really challenge all of you as well, to think of how are you thinking through and applying this. Hopefully you are, or maybe if not, after this episode, you might revisit the drawing board a little bit for your own plans. So practically, instead of just talking in theories, I go, all right, I have had to show up. At the time I was a staff sergeant, it was not that long after my father's suicide and after I had to sort of help my mom and my sisters not just even navigate their emotions and the fallout of that tragic news, but also take a look at, okay, what are you left with financially? A will, a testament, or whatever, like the stuff and things that were dad's, where do they go now? And I love my father, and he did some things well, and some of those things he didn't do well. And through the grieving and the bereavement and everything that my mother had to go through, there was also a lot that, man, it was just really difficult on her to navigate that space because he didn't set her up for success in all of those spaces. That's not being disrespectful. I think everyone who knows me knows how much I adore my dad, regardless of what he did. But is a husband, a father, he didn't set his wife up for success. And then I did these Keikos. And shortly after my dad's death, I had to serve as a Keiko for a Marine who had just returned from a combat deployment to some tragic news, and he killed himself. So I am assigned to take care of this Marine's spouse, and he had killed himself. And when you have to go make these notifications, you contact Headquarters Marine Corps Casualty Branch, and within 24 hours, you're supposed to notify the next of kin. And it's a very hush-hush thing until you as the calls officer make that notification. And the little details of stewardship that came rushing into the forefront of what I was dealing with was things about where is your next of kin's address? So Marines, we call it your record of emergency data. If you're a Marine and you listen to this and that stuff isn't up to date, don't be a chump. Update it. Update where your next of kin lives, their physical address, the ways to contact them, a working telephone number and email address. Actually, how much of your service members' group life insurance is going to go if there's a percentage split out, who gets what? Because if you don't dictate that, it goes by the legal precedents, and that might not be what you want it to be. And I've experienced this firsthand where it took me almost all of the entirety of that 24 hours to find the service member's next of kin. And then when I found her finally at her place of work because I did a little bit of like investigatory work, and I find out, okay, here's her mom, and back channel find a number for her who tells me, oh, this is where she's at. Yeah, he didn't keep things up to date. And I have to go to this woman's place of work in my uniform, so she immediately knows what's going on. She starts throwing things at me at the door, cursing at me because she knew what was happening. And then I'm having to navigate all of this, and he didn't have his finances in order for who's going to get what. So I'm seeing both sides of the family at a funeral arguing over who's going to get what. It was miserable. And I walked away from that whole experience going like, man, this is the outcropping of someone who might have loved his family, but didn't steward himself or his things well. And life happens to all of us, as does death. So if I was to leave tomorrow, what would happen to my family if I didn't have all of this stuff in order? And I've talked with Laura about this. So because of that, not to make this long and drawn out, but we've looked at the details of like actually keeping our will up to date every time we had another child, re-updating their names in that and how things will look. And it's not that we've done it perfect, but it's really important that there is some peace of mind if the tragic were to happen, that whoever is left behind knows that you love them enough to care for them and to steward your things well and to steward your relationship and your love for them well. And I think financially, that's actually a really good way to frame it because so much ties into loving people well, caring for them well beyond just the money side of it. Like, how are you trying to care for their hearts in a place that might hurt? So I would encourage you, wills, testaments, powers of attorney, whatever it may be, don't sleep on that stuff. If you haven't done it, I would really encourage you to take a look at it, make it what it needs to be, inform someone of where you're keeping that to where if you were to pass, it's just the reality of life that the loved ones that you're trying to care for know how you're caring for them. It's a weird conversation to have, but I think it's a mature conversation to have, and it is all about stewardship. So there's my thoughts. Anything to add on that? Because I know you've walked through that with me a lot.
I don't think so. But I know that it almost always causes some sort of argument afterwards if things aren't in order before someone dies. And then it just makes makes family members become angry towards each other and a time when they should be leaning on each other. So
Yeah, so
it's
true.
important.
So true. So don't wait around on that stuff. Okay. So what would you say is a story that you have maybe from your life or our marriage or just your experiences where stewardship looked different than what you expected? So maybe it wasn't resources. Maybe it was dealing with how you took care of and multiplied trust or time or relationships. So taking it another step past the financial. What does that look like for you?
I think that mainly any time that you were away, and we've only had one deployment when we actually had kids. The other one or the other few, we didn't have kids yet, or I was pregnant with Aria for one time. But I mean, I think the last time that you even did this podcast with me, I talked about the time where I was alone with Alessia and Aria and then pregnant with Karina, and they were 3 and 5. And at that point, I felt like in terms of resources, thinking of physical resources, and I did not have enough physical and emotional. And I did not have enough to be a good friend and maybe a good daughter and maybe a good sister or sister-in-law. And I could only just do the best I could to be a good mom and somewhat take care of myself. And also, I still had to go to work every day. So I think that that's the first one that comes to mind, because I did have to change where I divvied up my resources. And many people who I know through the military, especially military spouses, who ask me if I was involved in this organization or this organization in 29 Palms, I just tell them no, because I just worked and took care of kids. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much what I did when we were in 29 Palms. And even I remember meeting other spouses in front of spouses who knew me better, and they were like, Laura's kind of busy. So no, she hasn't been there. But anyway, that's what I think of.
Yeah, I think for us, it's I think of the trust aspect of it the most recently for me, outside of just finances. So like time, yes, we talked about that. Relationships, I think that's everything with stewardship, is how you relate to others and connect with them. But the trust piece, specifically with our oldest two, has been something we've been really trying to breed into them a little bit better, and deliberately use that word with, hey, I trust you for this. Or in little ways, it doesn't have to be a radical thing. Sometimes we do bigger stuff that shows a big leap of trust. And it does take some trust on my side to let that leash out, or to just take it off completely and trust them with things until they prove that I can't trust them. And I think that's important, because if I want autonomous, free-thinking children who develop their own sense of themselves and their own faith and their own moral compass, I have to develop that. So we believe that good parenting looks like the older the child gets, the less they probably have to rely on you to do basic life stuff. But trusting them with that is a hard process as a parent. I think all parents, or people in general, can relate, because we all, instead of stewarding, we all want to control. And again, stewardship isn't about controlling what you've been gifted. It's about growing it and gifting it and nurturing it and developing it. That's stewardship, not hoarding it or just throwing it away or burying it. So developing trust in the girls has been hard, but little stuff might be practical, like, hey, Aria, I trust you know what the basement needs to look like when you clean the playroom. Go down with your sisters, clean it, come let me know when it's done. And if they go and do it, there need to be some times where I or we let her come back and say it's clean, and we don't go down and check up on her. And then we look at her and say, okay, thank you. I trust you. And then she knows whether that's at the right standard or not. But then I've done that. And it's funny, because one of the first few times I did it to her, she looked at me and she goes, oh, actually, I think I forgot something. So it was natural in her mind to go like, ooh, I don't want to let you down because you actually are trusting me and you're not hovering me. So, ooh, I actually wasn't honest. It's not clean. I go, oh, okay, thanks. Well, then just go fix it and then you're good. And you let them move on. That's a small example, but I think trust is probably, especially with Aria more recently, we've been trying to develop that, model that, use those words with her. And she looked at me one day recently and said, Dad, they were asking me, I think it was either at Vacation Bible School or something like that. They were talking about trust. And there was a group of adults with her, and her little teachers in her group asked them, hey, can you give an example of someone you trust? And she said, I know I can trust my dad because he's always honest with me. And if I tell him something's good, he tells me he trusts me, and I know he'll always listen. And that was just really encouraging, that without anything soliciting it or me not even close by or in proximity, it's starting to take root, because she goes, oh, he actually trusts me because he shows me. It's not just words. And Laura does the same exact thing with them so much. So for me, I think trust has been the biggest area outside of finances, than in our family at least, and even together. It's a hard thing. If you've broken that, if you've made mistakes, which I have, we have, it hurts and it stings and you have to earn that back. But also you can't let yourself down. You can't be too hard on yourself. You do have to make some grace for yourself and your family to continue to build that trust and model it and appreciate the imperfections and press into the love that you have. So I think for the girls, trust has been a really huge thing probably the past year, especially for the older two. I don't know your thoughts on that or what you've seen from your perspective as a mom, but I think together we've tried to nurture that a lot more.
No, I think the same. And I think that they've both, I think it's tougher. Again, personality difference. It's tougher for one, maybe more than the other, but they have developed a whole lot. They are a whole lot more responsible now because of it. And it makes them feel more independent too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great thing.
So there's the framework for the head. I think all of Romans 12 is actually worth checking out. Go check it out. It starts about not conforming to the world, or I would say like the society or the culture or whatever's around you. Don't just be a conformist, but actually try to renew your mind, to transform your mind, to have a fresh approach that's healthy, aligned to your virtues, aligned to your faith and your beliefs, and let that be your starting point for how you press in faithfully to how you live, how you think about things, how you steward the things that have been gifted to you. But then moving into the hands, I think the framework we'll use for that is in 1 Peter 4:10-11. And it says, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks is one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves is one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God can be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. So the hands are really where stewardship becomes visible. So it's our daily choices and actions that multiply God's grace in tangible ways. And I think with kids, you can't really talk at them that much, like especially for the little ones. It doesn't click. It's caught before it's taught. So until they can intellectually grasp it, they're going to mimic, they're going to model. That's development psychology 101. But it's also true. You don't have to study it to just see it work in the way they model and mimic speech and behavior and facial expressions and body language and everything in the good, bad, and ugly. They're going to model it. So we have to show tangible, practical, hands-on ways of stewarding things. And it is about serving others. That's what we hope that they take away from our lives. So it's both spiritual and practical. Maybe it's carrying groceries for your neighbor, raising your children in faith by plugging into the things that they're doing and physically going to the things that they're doing with them and encouraging them and being present, or building our marriage together and letting them see mom and dad have mom and dad time alone. You're not welcome in here. Leave us alone. It's really important for those boundaries to be appreciated so they physically see that we're investing in stewarding certain time a certain way. So for you, what is something that you feel like you've been entrusted with in this current season of life we're in, whether it's family or faith or community or whatever? And how are you practically approaching stewarding that together as a married couple, as a family? What's your approach?
I think that I feel that because I haven't been able to work quite as much, I think that what I feel like I'm more responsible, I guess, for maintaining as much as I can with our 3 kids in 3 places, and just being there when I can. In the past, I never would have shown up to volunteer at any of our kids' schools on a weekday. And I have done that, and it's always seems to mean so much, especially to Aria. And it hasn't been my favorite season of life to be not able to do the job that I really love in that regard. But it also has been, I feel like it has been a necessary time after the years before, which were very consumed by work and maintaining this heavy schedule and maintaining, trying to keep track of everything with our kids. So I think that it is a necessary season, even though maybe I haven't always been super open to it. So and they are still young. They're getting older, but I mean, they're still young. So I think that my approach is that right now, God is entrusting me to this more, that I didn't have an active role in their lives, but I didn't have this super active, I need to be involved in everything sort of role like I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, for example, I just came back from, and this is mandatory, by the way, but I had to sit at the little kiosk, this little store where Alessia and Aria play soccer. And I had to be there for essentially 4 hours. It was a little bit less, but essentially 4 hours to do the volunteer part of how we actually pay for their sports. Is in Norway, you always have to do something called a dugnad, and that is serving your time somewhere else. And Josh and our neighbors can tell you that I was very stressed about the fact that I had to move it around so that we could go to this concert together. Like, no, I can't. That's my task. That's what I have to do. I have to be there. I can't skip it. But anyway, so I do think it's a good thing. I think it's also good for the kids to see that there's some necessary tasks that we have to do to give back so that they can do these types of sports. And it's okay for right now if typically that person who does a lot of these things is me. Whereas before, maybe it was more of both of us. So that's okay.
Yeah. I feel like we've both been entrusted and gifted in different ways and in different areas of our lives and in previous moments of our lives. We've been gifted some time and some margin, which is hard for me to say because I don't actually have a lot of margin a lot of times. But it's also because of the things I've been able to step into and take on board because I did have the margin to do it. So balancing really like how are we together and individually redeeming our time well. So if I have this extra time, am I squandering it? Or am I just filling it with everything so I don't have any space for myself or to just be present and have nothing on a schedule or a calendar, which is also equally frustrating to be so booked out that you burn the candle on all ends and then you don't have a candle left at all because it's just fried up. And you can feel like that at times. I think we've balanced communicating well together and stewarding that well practically, honestly, for us, looked like, as funny as this sounds, getting on the same calendar, literally. Because it was really annoying. This isn't knocking any brands. Nothing's promoting anything we're doing here. So this is just to be honest about what we were using. So we used to use our little iCalendars or iPhone calendars and try to see stuff on there. But then through the coaching and through people being able to book different sessions, and I used the Google scheduler on Google Calendar for that. And then it was a really sort of like rip the Band-Aid, just let's move to this new system. We use Google Calendar for everything because I can access that in unclassified spaces. I can see the schedule of what's happening. We put all of the pertinent details of the address, the times, the locations, who's going where. So it's like our little family planner that goes with us everywhere we need it. And as silly as that sounds, that was probably one of the smartest things we did together, was agreeing to just marry and merge our calendars. Because first of all, if people want to try and book a session with me, it won't allow you to do it if there's something already booked with the family, because it already has that preset in there that I built out and learned. I wasn't that smart on it, how to do that to where, hey, you can't conflict anything with your family calendar, and it won't allow you to do that. So it's been really nice for us. It gives Laura some peace of mind that, oh, if I put something in the calendar, Josh can't and won't sort of flick that away with any sort of coaching session or studying thing. And so it also is transparency and honesty of like, hey, I'm studying at this time. I'm doing PhD stuff at this time. I'm coaching at this time. I'm gone here for work at this time. Literally almost down to everything we do throughout the day without being obnoxious about it. We put it in there if it's pertaining to the family and ourselves, so that we know. I don't have to ask her silly questions like, oh, what's coming up? I can just go, look. She's already communicated it to me in that way. So that's been a really good way to steward and manage our time well and mitigate needless back and forth conversations or texts or emails. And then if she goes, oh, hey, can you get so-and-so daughter today? Or can you take her to such and such a place or event? It's already in there, the time that she needs to be there, the address, all of the details to help each other out and try to take care of each other and steward our marriage well, because it is a partnership and there's a lot to do with 3 girls in 3 different places all the time. And that's not even much to probably some of you that have more. But for us, it's a lot. So that's one of the ways that I think practically we tried to steward it. So our time and trying to redeem that and honor each other's time and give each other the space to not feel stressed out about stuff that we could just plan better is, I think, where we've made probably improvements in the past year, 2 years in our marriage, just out of necessity. So it's been pretty good. Where do you find stewardship the hardest? Is it ensuring you aren't guarding or gutting your talents, or is it more on the like growing and gifting what you've been entrusted with? And how do you encourage other people to work through those sorts of challenges? Got any thoughts on that?
I think probably I would say in the growing and gifting. However, I'm not sure if I have any encouragement or great ideas. Great ideas.
There went my big ice cube.
On how to efficiently resolve that, other than praying for opportunities and actually listening to what you really truly feel God has mapped out for you. But obviously that's not an easy task either. So
yeah, I think for both of us, it's probably been, I think the gifting part, maybe the growing part. But I think before even that, maybe it does dip back into what Fred and I talked about before you can really steward things, you have to understand that they're yours, that you've been entrusted with it, and that it's a gift. And sometimes I think it's hard for us to recognize what are gifts that we even have, what are capabilities or capacities that we even have. And I think a lot of people probably have a desire to steward and to manage their talents and their gifts and their resources well, sometimes they're completely unaware that they even have them. And I think what's resonated with me is the importance of encouragement in our marriage. Even if you think, oh, they probably already know this, encouraging and loving and giving a word of like, hey, I see you and I'm really proud of you for this, or keep going. I can be very blunt and honest, and she knows this. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks or says, the few and far between that might even dial in or listen to what I'm doing, because there's a purpose for this, for future research, that the number of followers or subscribers or things actually are completely irrelevant to me, to be honest. Like, I faithfully just stay disciplined to do the things I know God is calling me into doing, because it's actually very purposeful and strategic for what I'm going to research. So I've gotten a lot of confirmation on that from the PhD who's going to chair my dissertation and all of these things already, that it's spot on with where I want to go with it. But still in the process, it does take time, and it does take a lot of effort and energy. And while maybe those followings or clientele or whatever may not matter so much, it's not that they're irrelevant, but they may not be the most important thing. I'll tell you what does matter is that I get encouragement and recognition and love from my guest here today, my wife, and vice versa. Like, if she's doing things like taking her Norwegian language exams, or the things that she's doing while she does have a pause on her practice as a doctor of physical therapy, she's teaching Pilates. She recently had been doing massage therapy. She's doing a lot of different things and applying to different things locally, and has her work visa in Norway, has been really diligent to not just squander free time, whatever that may be with 3 little girls as a mom, but to try and use it and reinvest it to continue learning and growing and developing, to make open doors where other people would just see a brick wall, and to give herself opportunities and to really thrive here. So if she did all of that and I never looked at her and said, I'm proud of you for that, or man, you did a great job, even if she doesn't feel it, I can say that confidently as her husband, that I know it would be much more difficult for us in our respective lanes with what we're doing individually if we didn't have the collective in our marriage encouragement and support. So I think for me, it's growing and gifting is hard sometimes to continue doing it well and to be faithful in stewarding those gifts well if you don't have encouragement from the people or the person that's closest to you. So for me, encouragement from Laura will drown out anything any of you ever say. Love you like a play, cuz don't really care. Because if she says it, that's what matters to my heart, because that's my bride. And I think vice versa, like if her husband and children give her the love and support that she deserves, then I think other people's voices probably get a lot quieter, if you can even hear them at all, from the naysayers side. So I don't know your thoughts. I just feel like encouragement for me really carries me to continue gifting or recognizing gifts. And if you didn't give that encouragement to me, or if I didn't feel that, it'd be really difficult. I might be floundering. Like, am I doing the right thing? Is this even landing? It matters a lot to me. So from your side, where does encouragement help, or does that from that perspective of continuing to grow and gift in dry seasons or seasons where you're like, yeah, I don't really know where this is going right now?
Yeah, no, I agree. And obviously it is, of course, helpful to have encouragement and to not feel like you're, because there have been a few times where, since we've been in Norway, where I've been like, what exactly am I doing right now? What is this? And should I be trying to learn Norwegian, or should I not? Are we moving away? Should I stop now? Should I just keep going in case we don't move away? I mean, those are the thoughts that I've had. So, especially last year when I was really trying to pursue the Norwegian part, and I still am, it's crazy because when I look at it on paper, I've done really, really well, but it's still not good enough for what I need to work here as a physical therapist. I could be a permanent resident if I wanted, but I cannot be a.
Don't get it started. First of all,
but and that's crazy. I never thought that I would have to learn a new language at almost 40. Well, it's starting at almost 40, and then 40 years old, still learning a new language. And I think that each place we've lived, I've tried to do something very much out of my comfort zone, and this one definitely qualifies. But I also was part of a very, very small, only virtual Bible study with one lady who actually lives here, but we just kind of felt like it worked better to keep it virtual. And then one who Josh has mentioned a few times, Lynn's, and she lives in Germany. And more than once, when we've been talking about this, because I felt like it was a common theme, and I also felt like I was tired of even listening to myself talk about this. But there were more than one time they would be like, just keep going. Like, you're almost there. It's like the analogy of the man who almost struck gold and he kept digging, or he was using his pickaxe and he kept going and he kept going. And it was so long, but he wanted to stop. And then if he stopped, then he just had to do one more sweep or something. And then that would have been gold. So, yes, I think encouragement does go a long way, because there have been many times where I've been like, this is ready to give up. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll tap into this a little bit when we close it out shortly, but so much of stewardship does come to watching you and seeing you do it well, and the girls pick up on it too, it's so hard, I think, as a parent, because all of the feelings that we have for the stuff that's really frustrating or annoying or just exhausting, it's real and it matters. But part of our actions have to be driven also by being a parent, and like, what are we modeling for our children by, first of all, what we are investing in? Should we even be investing in this thing that's draining a lot of energy and time out of us? Of course, what she's doing definitely is good. So it makes you reassess priorities and investments across everything that you could be investing. And then also, when you're doing it and getting beat down, okay, sure, we could maybe quit things and justify why. But what is that modeling to our children? Or is it a chance to not just show them, but try and connect what our actions are back to the words and the virtues that we're trying to build? And Laura does that great. And I think together we try to do that well, is be honest when something's really hard and we don't want to do something. I can remember vividly times that she sat at the dinner table after doing something, and I've also done it. We sit down and we tell the girls, Daddy or Mommy just did this. Yep. And we go, no, we want you to know we did not want to do that. So we are very clear to be honest. Like, that was not enjoyable. That sucked. Dad didn't want to do it at all. And then we'll look at him and say, do you know why we did that? Oh, because this and this. I'm like, no, it has actually little to do with the outcome of the task we were doing. We did it so that we could come back in and tell you that we didn't want to do it. And we want you to learn that in this family, if we believe something is something that we've been entrusted with, or a task or a gift that's ours to steward or do well, that we care for it, that we do it, that we see it through. We have discipline, we have faithfulness in that action or in that thing or in that relationship, and we see it through as long as it's ours to care for. And that's really important. So it's difficult, but being a parent, it makes it so much more than yourself. And I think in any relationship, even if you're not a parent or married, there are people around you, hopefully, that can cause you to be a little more reflective and say, what is this going to say to the people that matter most if I throw the towel in now when I might have been so close? I don't really know exactly how close I could have been to either a breakthrough or something that was really impactful. Or maybe there's someone just watching me to see if I'm really made of what I say. And maybe that matters a lot for your most important relationships in life. So it's really important, the model that you're being for yourself and for others around you. And as a parent, it's everything. Like, that's pretty cliche, but it's non-negotiable. There's certain things we just do because we have to, because our children deserve good models of parents. And it sucks individually, but for the family unit, like, we have to. But I think encouragement is important. Love is important. And giving yourself a little, like we said with Lynn's, giving yourself some space and grace to hit pause where you know you can, to refill your coffers a little bit, and to reinvest time where it matters most so that you have some energy to keep going. It's all stewardship. It's all a balancing act. And then that moves nicely into the heart. So we can frame things and think about them. We can act on them. But really the heart of it all. And I chose this scripture anchor very deliberately because Laura's going to recognize this immediately. But in Colossians 3:23-24, it says, "Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ." That's Laura's life verse. As long as I've known her, that's been what she lives by. She works hard. And again, I will say, if there's people that are listening to this and you're like, yeah, cool story, I don't share your faith, I'm not a Christian, this isn't all about a spiritual application, although I believe personally that everything is a spiritual thing. But if you're dealing with the heart of things, I would ask you, like, what are you working for? I don't say this lightly, but just to humor those of you who are like, I don't believe in the Lord, I don't believe there is a God at all. Okay. So what if you were to replace that, humor me on this, and say, whatever you do, work heartily, as for your actual purpose, why you were put here, and not for other people, knowing that your purpose will drive the inheritance. That's your reward, not other people's opinions or perceptions about you. So you are working for your true identity and your purpose. And then you could re-swap that back in. Our purpose and our identity is in Christ. But for you, like whatever that is, are you actually working for something bigger than yourself and something that transcends other people's opinions or perspectives that may not get your vision? They may not understand where you're going with it. Are you so connected and tethered to other people's thoughts on you that you get stumped and you can't steward well? But since it's your life verse, and since you've shared that with me since the day we really met each other, why does that verse mean so much to you before we jump into closing this out?
Well, I came to Christ when I was in college, and it was during a time where I felt like I was working hard for everything. And now it seems very, honestly, easy to think about my life then.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time when I was in college, I just always felt like school I had to work extremely hard for, and I was not ever the very best field hockey player in college, but I could always rely on the fact, and my coach actually said it about me too, is that I was truly one of the hardest workers on the team. And that was a huge compliment to me because I didn't feel like if someone just talked about how talented I was, I didn't feel like that would be as big of a compliment than it would as she always works extremely hard and she puts everything into it. And so I believe when I actually came to Christ and then I started to get involved in Athletes in Action at JMU, I had talked with other Christians who talked about having a life verse, and I don't even remember how I stumbled upon that one, but I was like, oh yeah, that one's perfect, because it's not we would always talk about not playing for your audience, and you play for an audience of one, which sounds cliche, but it was actually pretty true and accurate. And so that when I heard that verse, it just emulated everything that I wanted to be. And I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So that was where it came from and when it all started and came into my life and all of that.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see both of our daughters are really hard workers, but especially Aria. She's very explicitly come up to me after soccer or football practice or a match. Been like, oh, Dad, I wish I was like this girl on her team or this girl on her team. And there's a couple girls that are like wizards with their footwork, and they're really talented, even at like 8, 9 years old in that age bracket. Like they're really, really good. And I'm like, yeah, they are. And Laura does a good job of shoring this up with her as well. I said, but I promise you that you don't want to be known for having all of this talent that you waste away because you don't work hard. I said, not that you don't need any talent, you do, to make a career or something successful or to just really be at the top of whatever you're doing. You have to have talent, but you can work on that to a certain extent. And then ultimately there's a cap on how talented you are, because everybody has a limit to how intelligent they are, how strong they are, how fast they are, your looks, all of those things are limited. But I think one thing that you can control, that you actually do own, is your emotions, your responses, and how hard you pour yourself into working at something. We try to teach her that. So you would much rather be known for being the hardest worker than for being the most skilled. Because hard work, not that talent can't beat it, but if you're close to generally about the same skill level, or if you're playing in the same league, let's say, literally for her case, the one who hustles, the hard work, is going to be the most beneficial for them. And we've seen that actually in some matches in a tournament, and her coach called it out in her. And I really love that he did this, because there was a match where the girl who's really, really talented gave up chasing a ball down. And Aria looked at me, and on the sideline, I just did this with my finger and pointed at the ball like, go. Almost like I was unleashing this dog out of hell or something. And she ran through the defender, ran straight at the goalie, which freaked the goalie out because these girls were sort of shy of each other and shy of the ball. And Aria ripped it into the back of the net and was like bouncing off of everybody. But it was a very aggressive play. She was the hardest worker, and she scored a goal when everybody else had given up on the play. And at the time, she was 8 years old, and she's not a highly talented, like skill level player yet. She's pretty good, but her hard work beat all of that skill and talent that was around her. And they were all in her proximity, more talented soccer players, if you will. But she scored. And I was so thankful for that gift of that example, because after the match, I was like, hey, do you remember when this happened? And she was ear to ear beaming. And I said, it's proof that your aggression and your hard work and your discipline and your commitment will outshine any level of talent that doesn't actually work hard. So I love that that's your life verse, and that the girls see that in you, because I see it in our little girls, like modeling their mom and hopefully modeling what I do. And it helps them have some success in life when they actually work hard. And then we always try to tie it back to we do things for God. We obey God. And in our family, from day one, we've always said, this is a little switch for me growing up, because growing up, it's not wrong, but we were always told, like, if my parents said, hey, who do children obey? And the answer was your parents. You honor your mom and your dad, so you obey your parents. Yes, that's not wrong. Sure, it's in the Bible. But in our family, we look at our girls and we say, who do we obey? So it's not just about them. We try to model that, like, Laura and I are accountable to something. And their answer is, we obey God. And I think that's really important, that it models really coming from Laura's life verse of, it's not just a thing our kids have to do. We also, as grown adults, have to be accountable to something. We have to work for something and for someone. And in our family, we choose that higher purpose and higher calling to be God. And it honestly almost puts us on a level playing field at times with our children, that they go like, oh, mom and dad who are strong, who are successful, who provide for us, who care for us, this is the model of how they live their life. So maybe it can work for us too. So really, the heart and where we anchor this mindset and these actions of stewardship, it doesn't come from an obligation for us. It flows from devotion to Christ and to each other. And when we're aligned, even the unseen things I feel like we do, whether it's patience with our kids that we're trying to learn, having integrity in the work that we do, having transparency in our schedules, having grace towards a spouse or towards ourselves, and giving ourselves space to be together every night. Recently, we started doing like our quiet time and just like reading the Bible or doing devotions together. We've always done that individually or with other people. And then we realized like we've slipped off the mark of doing that together. That's just honest. It's real. And we had to reassess, why aren't we doing this together as much when we're so quick to be happy to do it with friends? Because this is more important than friendships, because you're my spouse. And that's just real talk. We had to do that recently and go like, oof, we need to prioritize this again before it slips away any further. All of that's the heart. So we can think about it, we can do things, but like our heart has to be anchored in, I think, this verse. Like everything we do, whatever we do, it's for God and what he says, and we obey him. Even if we don't know the outcomes, it has to be obedience to what he has told us to do. That's important. We have to steward that well. So as we sort of wind down on these last couple questions, we sort of said at the beginning, like thinking of stewardship as money or possessions. Where do you think that you have seen stewardship show up the most powerfully, maybe in the intangible or in the unseen, when you're looking at the heart or relationships or character that matters most to you? What stands out the most for you? Or even just together with like our marriage or things that we've been trying to steward well together, like outside of the financial or the tangible, like things and resources. What's been the most important to you or the most powerful to you that we've been working on or that you've been developing?
I think being a good steward of my time, and our kids' time. Last year, we, around this time, took on too many commitments, and I was miserable. And I think that the kids were too. We had something every night of the week, which was silly and unnecessary. And I don't even know how we got there. And I remember listening to a sermon from Stephen Furtick, and he said this exact thing. I'm just so worried. I realized that I was so worried about getting all these things off my plate that I put there, that I put on my own plate. And that's how I felt like, wow, why? So I think going into this school year, especially, I have really been mindful of taking on commitments and just saying no to things that I really, truly don't want to do. And that the kids don't really care to do. It's not something that, if it's not something that's not high priority, then we don't need to add it to our calendar because we have enough. And I think that in general, I have a personality that likes to be busy. And I think that's why I like to have a job. And full-time job is a little much, I think, with both of us working that much, and then with the array of schedules here. But I think that's one of the reasons, is because I like to have this organization meet this schedule criteria, and I feel like I'm accomplishing more. So maybe that's why we got there. That's how we got there last fall. But I think now I'm realizing that less is more. And I'm so much happier, and I think that they are too.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody from my Pilates classes will listen to this podcast, but I was so excited when I never had to teach a Friday night Pilates class ever again.
Because Friday's family movie night and pizza.
And Friday night,
and that's a big deal.
It's a really silly night to have a class, but
it's a silly night.
There were people who really loved it, and I also loved them, but I don't even know how I got talked into that. But I think that sometimes I can be a big pushover when it comes to things like that. And so I have learned, yes, the art of saying no. I don't feel like I struggled so much with that, but now I'm just really actually thoughtfully thinking of what does this look like in my schedule. And in their schedule.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think for the heart side of stewardship, you nailed it. Again, we didn't rehearse any of this. Of course, I showed Laura, like, hey, I'll ask these questions sort of on short order and short turn, and, she's just going with it. But when I looked at this, I thought of the same thing, maybe through a slightly different lens, but I thought about how are we stewarding our children's time and schedules that as parents we can sort of dictate or control to a certain extent. But I thought of it more of like, how are we developing in them a heart of stewardship for their own stuff and for their own lives? And if that's confusing, let me try to explain it, because maybe it sounds a little bit abstract. But I can give my children the wrong impression or perspective about owning and recognizing their own gifts, and then developing, stewarding, nurturing, caring for those gifts that are unique to them. And as a parent, it's really, really hard not to fall into this trap. It can be as overt as, I want my child to be a rugby player, so I am just going to inundate them and smother them and waterboard them with everything rugby. I will not allow them to do anything but go to rugby. They will play no other sports. That is it. Or they're going to do jujitsu, and that's all they're going to do because I want a couple of little badass girls that can handle themselves, and I could justify it however I wanted. And then my daughters could be subject, as a parent, to whatever I tell them as a father they're going to do. Probably have some bitter little girls running around the house, or maybe not. Or maybe they'd be decent at it. But I think a good parent, a good father, a good mother would be prayerful, thoughtful, observant, quick to observe and listen to their children, to their children's heart, to, if you're a Christian, to what God is pressing into your heart, and what you're just noticing from what other people might be calling out as like, your child's really good or gifted at this. So getting a perspective of other people that see them throughout the day and really starting to blend these things together to get a real holistic, more accurate picture of the giftings that your child has been given, not what you wish they had been given. Maybe those align and converge on the same thing. And if they do, rock on. But what if it's not Aria or Karina being a little rugby player, although Karina's a bruiser and she'd be a fantastic rugby player? What if it's not that? What if it's something totally different? What if it's something you don't even necessarily like, but there's nothing wrong with it? You just don't like that idea. Are you limiting your child even embracing their gifts, much less learning how to steward and develop and nurture those? And that's a really challenging thing as a parent, that in this season, Laura's exactly right. We had a lot. None of it was bad stuff, but we had so much on their plate. And we did ask them, what do you want to do? It's not like they didn't have a choice in these things, but I think we had so much that they couldn't even get much of a come up for air. It was like an endless underwater crossover where they couldn't even come up and get a fresh breath of air before they were back underwater trying to swim, and just never got a chance to come up. And it was exhausting for everyone, and for the girls too. It was so much. And we were sort of getting burned out. And I think that's probably pretty common. It might come from a good place, but we were really putting maybe a little bit more of our expectations or desires as parents onto their plate and onto our own plate than what we actually should have. In this year, they're doing much different things. Some of it's still the same. It's on a much more manageable rhythm and schedule, and they actually are really thoroughly enjoying what they're digging into and what they're exploring. And so I think that's the mindset of the heart, like trying to really, is in a relationship with each other, with our kids, listen to the other person's heart, not what you want it to be. And then say, okay, how can I help encourage that, love you in that, pray for you in that, and then help you develop how you can steward that well and be a partner in that stewardship of growing it and gifting it, instead of like throwing those things that are actually your gifts to the side because I think this is your gift. It's hard as a parent not to do that. It's really, really hard. But that's where I've been the most challenged, is to put my own assumptions and desires to the side and really try to see each of my girls individually and get to know them individually, which only comes by spending time with them and by being present with them and really, really listening to them and observing them and listening to people that are around them a lot, teachers, friends, whatever. And it's incredibly hard. And it takes a really diligent parent, or for me, I have to say, it takes a really diligent father to do those things well. But I think it's really important. So if stewardship is about multiplying rather than hiding away, what are some practical ways you've seen this multiplication play out with the girls, whether it's an individual or collectively as a mom? Like the things that they're stewarding and starting to grow and maybe gift back. What's some practical things that you've seen that you feel like you've invested in well with them, that you're now seeing a little bit of the fruit in it?
With their gifts?
Mm-hmm.
Or
I would say with their gifts. Yeah.
I would say that we have absolutely invested in the fact that we have one particular daughter who's very, very good at speaking Norwegian. And so this is another, I think, aspect of the stewardship that we were talking about, and just being a different season of life. But it's not easy or convenient to have her at a different school than her older sister. But we want to sort of cater to and support the fact that she is learning a new language. She's doing something totally different than anybody in our family has done. And it's all her, and she, I think that it has been a really great thing also just for her personality in general, and for her to have something that is just her own thing, especially as from what I hear, the middle child can feel left out at times, but this is something that's just hers. And then with Aria, I think that we've really invested in with her is just definitely the trust and responsibility, and really working to help her become a very independent, self-sufficient girl. And that has, I think she already has a good baseline for that on her, or base for that on her own. But then I think supporting that has been great for her and for us, honestly.
I'm about to laugh right now because if you're going through all three of them, I
I
can't wait for whatever you're about to say for Karina.
And then again, I have no idea what to say about Karina because she's 3 years old.
Oh, man.
But I still think that we are trying to help support the personality of whatever that's going to be. Right now, it's just a funny one.
Everything about her is funny. I will say this, not to be reaching for an example for Karina, but something that she is very good at is being, this is maybe the proverbial third child. She's very attentive to everything, but she is also extremely determined. Part of that comes from having two very strong older sisters who are very intrusive into her life, from either a very kind, overly sweet smother, or also a very punkish, bully her around a little bit at times. And she will totally stand up for and be committed to something, which I love. But on the flip side of it, she has been really amazing. So she has an issue with one of her eyes where her right eye wants to sort of cross into the center, so the muscles aren't as strong. So she's had to wear an eye patch. And for a little 3-year-old girl, she started at like having to wear the patch 7 hours a day. Then it was down to 6. Then it bumped down to like 5, and then I think 4. So progressively, like from 6 or 7 hours over time, going back several months later, getting reassessed, they can reduce the amount of time, the amount of hours each day that she wears a patch. So for a lot of her waking hours for several days, recently she's been having to wear an eye patch. And she has been such a champ about it. Sure, maybe we could try to take some claim for that and be like, oh, we're not dramatic about it. We try to make it fun. But also, that's an individual choice, because she's a 3-year-old and she acts like a 3-year-old a lot. And there's a lot that gets under her skin. But for whatever reason, through a lot of prayer on our part too, we really want her eye to be corrected. And she's progressively gotten little by little better. But she's having to wear her patch over her good eye so that the bad eye corrects itself to focus. I can't even imagine that. Like, that would drive me nuts. And at 3, she's old enough to know what it's like to not have a patch on. She does it amazingly. So to watch those sort of things for her too, it sounds sort of funny, but that is a gift of hers, to be very determined that when she wants to do something, when there's an environment that makes it a good thing for her, she's very committed to just doing it. Like, hey, you have to do this. And she's just like, okay, mom. Okay, dad. May I put the patch on by myself? So she has a lot of freedom in it. And actually, I've seen a lot of her boldness and autonomy and independence and grit. So as a 3-year-old, as funny as that sounds, it is a very gritty thing to have to do. Like, I can't imagine wearing an eye patch on my good eye if I had a bad one for the majority of my day. So it is cool to see their individual personalities and giftings, even with their emotions and character, be navigated, be developed, and really ultimately trying to teach them to be faithful and steward it well. So maybe that's a little bit of a reach because she is a 3-year-old dog, but Karina is a sweetheart as well. And also, fun side note, she woke up. Aria has been doing a lot of sleep walking and talking lately. And I don't know if she's just catching it from her older sister from our vacationing, but Karina woke up in the middle of the night on our vacation in Disney, jumped out of bed, started running and screaming, "No, I can't brush my teeth and floss." So I don't know what traumatized her about dental hygiene, but something. There you have it. All right, to close this out, I think it anchors in this for us. It's found in 1 Corinthians 4. The first 2 verses say, "This is how one should regard us." And this is really what we hope as a family too, and as a married couple. This is how one should regard us, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it's required of stewards that they be found faithful. So we hope that when people interact with us and with our family and with this space, that we're good stewards of the things we've been gifted, that we're servants of Christ, more than just what we want to be, a purpose and a calling that's higher than just ourselves as a family. And the things that are mysteries, which is everything in the future, that is a lot about stewarding. You don't always have to have all of the facts. You actually will never have all of the facts. You'll never have all of the details, but to be diligent and faithful and obedient in what you feel you've been called into for your purpose, for your life, that's everything with stewardship. It is about being faithful in the little things and in everything. So if you were to walk away from this and go, man, I really wish this question would have been asked, or I really should have mentioned this. This is like my key takeaway from stewardship in my life right now. What would that one thing be that you would want to leave with people as it relates to this virtue?
I don't think there's anything else you want to ask me.
That's good.
Especially coming off of my 4-hour do not and being tired, Disneyland tired.
Oh, Disneyland is a whole another level of tired.
I can't claim that. I stole that from Micah because she said there's Disneyland tired, and that's true. But
That's very true.
I would say just with kind of recognizing your talents and your gifts more so than I should say your talents, is just that just encouragement to keep on going when you don't feel like keeping on going. So just because that has been a common theme, and I think that it actually has a whole lot to do with stewardship. Mm-hmm. So that would be it.
So for me to close this out, I thought of a story that I heard ever since I was a kid. But in light of the last sort of closing anchor that we read about, it's all about obedience and being faithful in every little detail, even when you don't know what the next step might be. Just be diligent in stewarding what you've been gifted in this current space. And I thought of this story, and it is a Bible story about the first king of the nation of Israel, Saul. And Samuel is a prophet. And in 1 Samuel 15, God had given Saul clear instructions on some things he needed to do. Saul, who was the king, decided to do things his own way and then tried to cover up what he did with a sacrifice. Like, I'm going to make a sacrifice to God. And he did things and took things he wasn't supposed to. Samuel's response was really sharp to him. He said, to obey is better than to sacrifice. And to me, that hit hard. And the scripture said that God, and it might say this somewhere else. So like all the nerds or people that want to pull up Google or whatever, I didn't think to do it. I could have done it easily on myself. I just didn't. All right. But to my knowledge, from what I've read and recalled, this is the only place I have ever seen this pop out to me, where in this part of the Bible, it says that God regretted making Saul the king because he was unfaithful. So it actually said that God regretted a decision or a choice that he allowed to be made, because on the back end of it, this person that he put in a position of leadership wasn't faithful and didn't obey what he knew he was supposed to be doing. He didn't steward well. He wasn't faithful with what he had been entrusted as the king of a whole nation. He did his own thing. Then he tried to cover it up. That hits pretty hard. So to me, it's a sobering reminder that stewardship isn't really about how much we can do or offer on our own terms or what we think should happen. Even if we don't know how it's going to pan out, if we know from our purpose and from the vision for our life that we need to do something, we have to be obedient to that. We have to be faithful to steward that. And it doesn't require that we have all of the answers or to see the whole forecast on the horizon or to chase our own whims or what we hope would be success or what that would look like. But it requires trust and obedience. And to take it back to the girls' verse, we can have some joy and a confident hope that it will work together for our good, even if we don't have clarity on what that outcome or what that good may be. For us, it is, sure. Will we be here one more year or maybe 3 more years in Norway? Who knows? There's a lot of things that happen based on which way that zigs or zags. For Laura and her career, for the girls, for me and my career, who knows? There's a lot of things with where we're at in this military life space that we don't always have an opportunity to call those shots. But with the time and space we're given, we want to be faithful. We want to steward it well. We want to love each other well and encourage each other well. So for me, I think the takeaway from that story with Samuel and King Saul is that stewardship is living with a head, hands, and heart that are open to trust and obey what we believe our Heavenly Dad has gifted and entrusted to us. We do hold fast to our God-given purpose, and then we are entrusting the outcome to Him because we know He's good, and we know that He's carried us through some stuff that on the front end of it looked hard, much like Laura back in her school days. And now looking back on it, it's actually almost laughable how easy it was to get on the other side of that. So hindsight's always 20/20. I think being faithful and diligent through that process is where we grow, where we transform into being better people. And it all requires our obedience and faithfulness. And that's how we hope we're found. So for Aria and Alessia and Karina, this one's special because it's from your mom and dad. And Aria said she was really excited to see mommy's episode tonight. So I'll have to show it to her. But this is always for you all. Hopefully this is dad and mom stewarding our time well with an evening where we could have done nothing, even if it's for no one else but you. We love you and we hope that you know our hearts, and that even if we weren't guaranteed tomorrow, that we could leave this for you to let you know that it matters that you're obedient and faithful to exactly who God has called you to be. Even if mom and dad might see it differently, we want you to listen to that voice and to be true to that person. And hopefully we can help you and model that well. And for the rest of you, we hope this was helpful. We'd love to hear your thoughts or your comments. We're really glad you joined us and dialed in. And we hope you have a great weekend.
Cheers.
See you next week. Cheers. And to my wife, thanks. I love you.
Cheers.
Cheers to whatever that white wine was and whatever this bourbon was. Have a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my reflections and stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.